Have you ever wondered if beards hurt you during summer? Or if the archives are always opposite of the ruins? Well, I've compiled a list of 34 of the most frequently discussed myths this game has to offer, from both my comment sections over the years, members of my Discord, and even some I could have sworn by in the past myself, and put them to the test to see if they are true, or to bust them for the fraudulent pieces of advice that they may be. Why such a specific number? Well, as you may be aware, I'm getting really close to 34 million trillion subscribers, so if you want to help me with reaching that milestone, then you know what to do. Anyways, let's begin. Picking flowers and making yourself a flower garland is a quick way to get yourself made fun of by more experienced players. But does picking flowers actually do any harm? Many people suggest that it lowers butterfly spawns, which are an essential food source for almost every player. While butterflies are connected to flowers, they don't actually scale per flower. Instead, butterflies will spawn depending on the amount of players near flowers. Meaning if you have one person next to, say, 1,000 flowers, they will actually get less butterflies than 6 people near 1 flower. Myth busted. Myth number 2 states that moleworms will eat minerals. And by eat, I mean like destroy them completely. Now, I'll admit, this myth is partially true, as a captive moleworm must be fed minerals to keep it alive. However, when moleworms are alive and on the ground, they don't actually eat the minerals that they take. They merely bring them back to their little holes in the ground where you can then dig up your stolen goods at a later time. All of your minerals will be there, safe and sound. Really, we should be praising these cute little lumps. They're just cleaning our base for us. Unless they take that gunpowder you have laying around, then they may give you a pretty nasty surprise. Or even worse, if you're playing Reign of Giants, the Old Bell, which can be, run-ending to say the least. I'm not gonna spoil it, just don't let them grab it. Either way, myth busted. No, moleworms aren't eating your rocks and trinkets, just cleaning up your messy base for you. Be thankful. Myth number 3 deals with wetness. Taking off and unequipping your wet items while you are soaked will remove your sanity drain. Or will they? While it is true that holding soaked equipment and wearing soaked clothing will increase the rate at which you lose sanity by quite a large amount, unless you are playing as Wormwood or Wirt, you will also suffer a penalty depending on how wet your character happens to be, even when it's not raining. Still, you will want to remove those wet accessories, but just remember that it won't fully protect you from sanity drain like some people suggest. Staying on the topic of wetness, myth number 4 states that water balloons are a great offensive tool, especially now that electric damage has been buffed, since you can use them to make creatures wet. Unfortunately, this myth is only partially true. You see, most mobs don't share the same wetness bar that we players have, and as such, they don't follow the whole wetness feature that players have. They simply follow the world wetness. When it rains, and when the world gets soaked, then they are wet. When it's not raining, they are dry. And it's as simple as that. The only exception to this is Dragonfly, who for some reason shares the same wetness meter as a regular player, so this myth is partially busted, I guess, unless you count Dragonfly, but that's one creature in a game filled with many creatures, so I don't know. Just don't pull up to Ancient Fuel Weaver with some water balloons and expect to do anything. The next myth is one that even I fell for in my early days of Don't Starve. Myth number 5, a torch will warm you up when held. While torches warm you up in games like The Long Dark or even Far Cry Primal, if anyone remembers that game, torches do nothing but provide light and don't starve. Although fun fact, they also provide 20% wetness protection, which is weird given the fact that it both suffers from the rain and doesn't provide any overhead protection. Either way, this myth is busted. No, torches do not warm you up or protect you from freezing. Myth number 6, bunnymen will attack Wirt. Because pigmen attack Wirt, many players assume that she has the same monster tag that Wartox and Weber have, which will cause her to be attacked by bunnymen like them. However, Wirt does not actually have the monster tag. She's categorized as a merm, which while merms and pigs are hostile due to the lore that we don't exactly know about quite yet, merms are not classified as monster creatures, and thus, Wirt can chill with bunnymen as much as she likes, and can usually do so even better thanks to her vegan diet. Myth busted. Myth number 7. When farming Volt Goats, lightning rods will stop them from being struck by lightning. This is one even the wiki says. While this is partially true, lightning rods and Volt Goats have the same lightning priority, meaning that eventually, if you roll that 50-50 dice roll wrong, one of your goats will get struck and become an absolute menace. The only foolproof way to protect your Volt Goats is to pen them underneath a fig tree, as the canopy blocks 100% of lightning strikes, meaning you can fully control when they are charged. Otherwise, you're just gambling. Next up, we got a shipwrecked myth, and it won't be the only one, don't you worry. I am the single player guy after all. Myth number 8, when gaining enough naughtiness on sea to spawn a Krampus, he will spawn instantly upon you reaching land. This is fortunately not the case. You can rack up as much naughtiness as you want at sea, and the only way to spawn a Krampus will be to earn at least one more naughtiness point at land. Otherwise, if you act good, then your points will decay like normal. Myth busted. Also, it's sort of funny because your naughtiness is uncapped while on a boat. Here's me amassing like 7 million naughtiness and then stepping foot on land to spawn one Krampus. Gotta love it. What about gaining naughtiness on a boat in Don't Starve Together? Will that cause a Krampus to instantly spawn once you hit the shore? Well, it seems like it's even safer, as when you hit max naughtiness on a boat in Don't Starve Together, it's instantly wiped back to 0, and no Krampi will spawn either on the shore or on your boat. So, go nuts with killing birds on boats, it's not going to do any harm to you. Myth number 10. Ranged attacks are undodgeable without invincibility frames, like from Wanda's backstep watch or Wheeler's dodge mechanic. Be it from Mac Tusk, Bishops, or even Spitter Spiders, ranged attacks are actually all dodgeable. The only issue is you will need distance from your attacker, and more importantly, a speed boost. Ranged attacks all have different speeds as well. A Spitter Spider is infinitely easier to dodge than a Mac Tusk due to the dart moving significantly faster. But you can dodge every single ranged attack, so myth busted. Myth number 11. Ghosts haunting flammable structures and items can cause them to spontaneously combust. Well, I tested this out by haunting a tree like a billion times, and I can confidently say this myth is false. However, there's a reason this myth exists in the first place. Way back in the day of Don't Starve Together, like back before disease was even a thing, if any of you remember that, ghosts were a lot different. They had a health bar and even a hunger bar, and were a lot more destructive, being able to light things on fire and hammer down structures. I, for one, am pretty glad that that changed. Myth number 12 suggests that insulation can be harmful. And while it's true that winter clothing won't heat you up faster, it does negatively impact your ability to cool down, as can be seen with this Klaus fight. I am capable of cooling off a lot faster without the winter hat on. Okay, but I always thought clothing was never bad for you in Don't Starve. Maybe it's because I'm doing this fight in autumn? What if we did the Klaus fight in the opposite season, which is spring? Nope, it still causes me to retain heat with the winter hat on. This is really strange. Okay, let's try a blazing inferno of fireballs. Maybe the Klaus fight is just special. And as you can see, in spring, while wearing a winter hat, we do lose the heat gained from fireballs as fast as without, which is odd, but in autumn, wearing the winter hat will cause us to retain heat significantly longer. Maybe I'm thinking about this way too much, and maybe the Klaus fight is just really weird, but ignoring the Klaus fight, this myth is partially true. During autumn and winter, warm clothing can harm you, and during spring and summer, cold clothing can harm you. At least that's what my testing has shown for Don't Starve Together. This next myth was going to be about beards and their effect on insulation, but as we just saw, insulation is weird and works both ways regardless. So let's make this interesting and say that the next myth is that beards will harm you during summer and spring. We already know that because they provide warm insulation values that they can harm you in autumn and winter, but what about spring and summer? Well, we can test that by using the fireballs in spring, and as to what I can see, no, beards do not hurt you during spring. I even tested summer with an endo just to be safe, and yeah, at least with my testing, beards are totally fine to wear during summer. By themselves. That's where this myth actually holds some merit. You see, beards provide negative insulation value, and they're the only things to provide negative insulation value, which means that they will actively harm whatever insulating clothing you may be wearing. An Ibrella, for example, will be half as effective on a full bearded Wilson. So yes, beards will hurt you during summer, but not directly. They will just make your summer clothing less effective. If you plan to use a thermal stone for the summer, go ahead and stay full bearded, since thermals are not affected by insulation value. If I'm confusing you, I'm sorry, I'm also confused. Clay made insulation really weird, so let's go ahead and go back to a topic that should be easier to explain. This next myth we have is one that's apparently one of the biggest myths of Don't Starve Together, and it's that meteor fields will expand over time. Now, I'm not sure what started this myth, but if it was true, we would hear day 1000 megabasers complaining about it all the time. And quite frankly, it would be pretty annoying for those who do want to set up a nice base. Not to mention, a developer themselves came out and said that this myth was busted because of how big and spread out it got. So yeah, I won't spend too much time on it since that removes the need for testing, having a developer say that it's false, so we're just gonna move on. This next one is a weird one that's going to require a little bit of game knowledge. So let me break it down for you. In Don't Starve Together, any objects not near an active player, including mobs and other resources, are unloaded, like Minecraft, to save on memory and whatnot. However, in Minecraft, there are things known as chunk loaders or spawn chunks that stay loaded and active forever. In Java at least. Bedrock gets like trident killers instead and stuff. It was long thought that because Occuvigils will show the map around them, that they would also load in the chunks. But a quick test with some mobs and combat and some waiting shows that this is unfortunately not the case. It would have been cool though because it would lead to some sweet AFK farms, but I understand why they don't because that would cause some serious lag. So those weird yucky lunar mutated mobs that will only appear on Lunar Island? Well, apparently there was a rumor going around that if left on the mainland for long enough, these guys would actually revert to their normal self. Now, I'm not sure how you're supposed to get a Moonrock Pengul to the mainland, since they for some reason can't swim despite being Penguls, but horror hounds will swim, so we brought a horror hound to the mainland, and I let him chomp on me for a while, and as you can see, he just doesn't transform. And I stayed here for quite a while. I think I can confidently say that this myth is busted. Now, this next myth is actually one that I have believed myself, and that is that birchnut stumps are fireproof. And I swear, for some reason, I genuinely thought they were. Maybe it's a Mandela effect, or maybe they actually were in a previous version. If you know, let me know in the comments down below, but this is obviously a myth. As we can see, it doesn't require that much testing. This next myth is one for my plant boy enjoyers out there. Because bees are attracted to Wormwood's bloom trail, many people assume that they are actually capable of making honey out of the flowers. Unfortunately, as we can see here, no honey can be produced without actual live flowers. I made sure to delete all of the real flowers from this entire world, too, to make sure, just in case. Sorry guys, I guess Wormwood just isn't sweet enough. Defeating Dragonfly is usually a stepping stone for most people's survival playthrough in Don't Starve Together. Most people spend those scales on scaled furnaces. However, if you're looking to duplicate those scales, you'll probably make some scaled flooring thanks to it giving you 4 scales for the price of 1. But does scaled flooring actually fireproof everything on it like many people say it does? Well, using a simple test setup, we learned that yes! Wow, yes, it actually does completely fireproof everything on it. Even grass tufts become 100% fireproof when on it. Now, this doesn't prevent you from setting things on fire, but fire won't be able to spread onto or inside of scaled flooring. I'll be honest, this even shocked me. I never thought this stuff could actually be useful, but here I am. Scaled flooring is actually useful, guys. Wow. Being low on health comes with its own dangers, but the last thing you would expect is a mob hunting you down because you're low on health. This next myth states that buzzards will hunt you down while you are at low health. And as we can see, this is thankfully false. Vultures are carrion feeders and would probably rather wait till you completely stop moving anyway. I could have also sworn that they attacked you when you picked up their food, but I couldn't actually replicate that, so maybe that's a single player thing, or I don't know. I don't know, man, these vultures are kinda chill. When you drop an item in other survival games, like Minecraft or Terraria, they can despawn when given either enough time or under certain circumstances. So many new players coming from either of these two games may assume the same is true of Don't Starve. I mean, chests are in the game, so there must be some reason to use them, right? Well, thankfully, items will not despawn, disappear, or otherwise go away, with a few exceptions. Rot in Don't Starve Together will wash away in the rain, food items can be eaten by creatures who stumble into your base, and if you're playing the Shipwrecked or Hamlet DLC, strong winds can blow your items away, but they'll never outright vanish into thin air like certain block-based games. So go nuts, decorating your base. When it comes to finding the ruins or the archives in Don't Starve Together, something I've seen parroted by some players is that the ruins is directly opposite of the archives and vice versa. But I've seen this theory challenged a lot. So, to put this myth to the test, I decided to create 5 test worlds using brand new servers each time. On the first world, well, it wasn't exactly opposite. At least the ruins proper wasn't, but the atrium was. And if we consider that part of the ruins, then sure, it was opposite, but I don't know if I would since the atrium is unreachable anyways. But like any good scientist, I need to do a full dataset run, so I'm gonna give it 4 more chances. And when I did give it 4 more chances, only one of the 5 worlds had the lunar archive directly opposite of the ruins. Now, I don't exactly like the term opposite, since theoretically any biome can be the opposite of the ruins since it takes its own side of the map, but opposite in this term means a walkable path to the ruins that directly mirrors the archive. And this only happened to me one time in 5 worlds. I think that's enough data to say that this myth is busted. Myth number 23 is that subscribing to Polarlotus and liking this video won't increase your coolness by at least 53%. As you can see, here's Wilson before he subscribed to Polarlotus, and here's that same Wilson after he subscribed. Yeah, he's pretty cool now. I think we can all say that myth's busted. The Beekeeper hat really doesn't see a lot of use outside of certain large bee boss battles, because bees really aren't all that threatening. But something I've heard before and even believed myself briefly due to a Mandela effect is that Beekeeper hats will actually stop bees from spawning when harvesting bee boxes. As we can see, this is unfortunately false. The only way to stop bees from spawning and attacking you is to harvest during winter or hurricane season. But they also don't produce honey during these seasons, so it's kind of a lose-win situation. This next one's for all you woody lovers out there. I have heard people say that werebeaver does more damage to tree guards, but is that true? Well, let's put it to the test. As you can see, here's the damage to a non-tree guard, and here's the damage to a tree guard. And wow, the myth's actually true, guys. Woody will do double damage to tree guards as a werebeaver. But who am I kidding? You're probably still gonna fight them as moose because, you know, skill tree and whatnot. It's pretty powerful for weremoose. Earthquakes are a somewhat annoying event that you can encounter in Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together. But can these annoying but ultimately harmless events spawn depth worms? As you can see, I triggered quite a few earthquakes, and nope, no depth worms. That's nice. Also, I want to add on, when I said harmless, I meant pre-rift earthquakes. Post-rift earthquakes are, well, if you haven't experienced them, I won't spoil it for you. I'll just say you're gonna want a pillar if you have a base down here. That's not what this myth is about, though. This myth is busted. There's no depth worms that come from earthquakes. This next one is honestly one that I don't really know where it came from. I think I heard it from a few people on the forums. You know, as glorious as those may be, it's probably a pretty old one, but some people have said that skitter squids will come to land during summer. But skitter squids don't work like that. They can spawn while you're near a coast during any season, and their spawning cycle is actually like rainbow jellyfish from Shipwrecked. It's connected to the moon cycle, not the season, with the new moon giving you the highest chance to witness a skitter squid breaching its watery tomb and entering the landlubber's territory. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a recording of one of these guys actually coming to land, but if you spend long enough near the coast, it will happen. It's happened to me before, I swear bro, you've gotta believe me. For this next one, we have to go to the world of Hamlet, and we're bringing a pine cone with us. Something that I've heard is that trees planted in Hamlet will actually grow significantly slower. And this myth is true, actually, but it's weird. So trees grow at the same rate in Hamlet, around 7 minutes as a baby tree, 18-ish minutes as a teen tree, but adult trees are completely different. Adult pine trees will last about 5 minutes longer before wilting and restarting their cycle in Hamlet. And after further testing, it appears this effect extends to all adult trees within Hamlet, with adult jungle trees lasting a whole entire real-life hour. So next time you set up your tree farm, consider Hamlet over Shipwrecked or Reign of Giants, as your harvesting period will last almost a day longer. For pine trees, that is. Speaking of Shipwrecked, let's go back there for a second to talk about rainbow jellyfish. They're a fan favorite because they act like glowberries but are literally everywhere and won't hurt you or pretend to be a dangerous worm guy. It's common knowledge that these guys are connected to the volcano, but can they really lead you to the volcano? Well, yes, this myth is true, but you gotta do a few extra steps. No, they won't sail you to the volcano or anything, but if you find a cluster of them on the side of an island, there's a very good chance the volcano is in that direction, since they'll spawn at the volcano and migrate towards the map edges thanks to the moon cycle. If you're wondering why I'm not showing footage of rainbow jellies doing this, though, it's because I'm using cheats to speed up time, which sort of breaks their spawning cycle, and I really don't feel like waiting an hour to reach the full moon and show you guys, so you'll just have to trust me on this one. I've seen this with my own eyes plenty of times, I've played lots of Shipwrecked, I promise you, it's true. Alright, back to the mainland constant for this next myth. Most people assume that cooked food is always significantly better than raw food, and while this is usually true, there's one food that you're better off eating raw: carrots. That's right, unless you're itching for health, carrots will give you the same food value raw or cooked, and will even last a little longer raw. If they go stale though, don't be afraid to cook them to refresh them, but otherwise it's best to just not bother. Hell, I bet you didn't even know that meat gives you the same food value. You'll still probably want to cook that one first though because of the whole, sanity penalty thing. But I mean, who knows, maybe you want to go insane. This next one is about a specific character. That's right, we're looking at Wheeler. As we all know, this beast of a character has a built-in dodge roll mechanic, which allows her to get invincibility frames against almost everything the constant has to throw at her. She can even dodge hunger and temperature tick damage, but can she dodge Charlie, the night monster? Well, let's armor up and find out. As you can see, or rather can't see, we're straight up chilling without a light source. It seems like dodging even completely resets Charlie's attack timer, and for the cost of 40 sanity, we survived an entire night with no damage. This myth is true. Look at you go, Wheeler. The next myth is something that Wanda mains hate to hear. We all know that Wanda is capable of dishing out a ridiculous amount of damage with her alarming clock. But Mighty Wolfgang is a close second with just a dark sword. And thanks to the slower swing speed of the watch, some people have suggested that Wanda's DPS is actually lower than Wolfgang's DPS. Well, let's test that. Here's Wanda versus a tree guard. And here's Wolfgang versus a tree guard. As you can see, Wolfgang does actually just beat Wanda in terms of raw DPS, very slightly. So consider this myth true, if you don't count animation canceling. An animation canceling Wanda can delete enemies in seconds, way faster than Wolfgang even with animation canceling. But due to the fact that there can be some user error with animation canceling versus just holding F, I won't consider it for this myth. I just wanted to include that because, animation canceling is broken, OP, awesome, epic sauce or whatever. Now, this myth isn't one that I've seen talked about that much, but there was at least one mention of it, so it was worthy enough for this video. And it has to do with two specific trinkets, Gnome and Gnomette. The idea is that if you leave Gnome and Gnomette on the ground together for long enough, a new Gnome will spawn, giving you a simple gold farm. Let's go ahead and put that to the test and wait and see. Yeah, no, this myth is false. There's no code to support it, and I'm sure someone would have stumbled into it and reported it by now. For our final myth, we're gonna talk about something that plagues many games, not just Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together. The dreaded 50-50 coordinates. The world origin point and the center of everything. People have long said that entities that somehow spawn out of bounds will be teleported to the center, So to test this, I dragged myself out of bounds and spawned in a mush gnome, which promptly crashed my game. So I redid all of that but with a pigman, and what do you know, he just vibes out here in the out of bounds back rooms of Don't Starve Together. He doesn't disappear or anything. So as for out of bounds and Don't Starve Together, this myth is busted. I have heard of it working in Don't Starve single player though, with either Mac Tusks or Pigmen that spawn out of bounds traveling far enough and being instantly teleported to 50-50, but I've never seen it myself and the testing could not provide a replication. So I'm gonna say, this myth is false. And there you have it. 34 myths tested from Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together. If there's any myths I didn't cover, then leave it in the comments down below. Some of these were obvious, especially for us experienced players, but look, if you were a new player and learned something new, then go ahead and tell me so in the comments. While liking this video, of course. Anyways, I won't keep you guys here any longer. I'm gonna go ahead and keep frolicking with my new pig friend out here in the Don't Starve Together backrooms. I'll see ya everyone. Polarlotus out.